Hello, welcome. Nice to have you here. Uh, Maybe there are some people still watching Mike's awesome Drawing the Human Head stream at the moment. I'm in the middle of preparing to move, so I have some pretty dramatic visual noise hanging in the background. So I thought today I hang this painting of Saraswati, goddess of intuition and creativity and music. I normally have her hanging my workspace here. Hello, Ensim. Nice to have you here. Hello, Karen. Yeah, it's been a pretty mad week for me. Getting ready to move. Karen, thank you for coming here straight from Mike's live stream. That's awesome. Yeah, it's hot here. I don't know how it is for you, Karen and Sim in Berlin. But it's pretty warm, so we've been spending a lot of time with the kids trying to cope with the heat. Hello, Leandro from Brazil, Hilda from Pennsylvania. So nice to have you join me today. Thank you, Sketchy. Yes, so this was the Goddess Saraswati. I painted this for a teacher training. My wife Kira is a yoga teacher, and she taught a teacher training that over the course of 10 months had 10 different deities which were a focus for the topic of that module. And this was actually a reference from, I believe, a Brazilian woman from the Sketchy app, who I used for the inspiration of the portrait for the goddess Saraswati. So she's here joining us today to help with the intuition and creative process and guide creation and the move. So there's lots of boxes over here and it's all a bit chaotic. But it's nice to take the time to be here and draw with you. So if you would like to, you'll see this painting on my Instagram feed. If you go a bit further back, there are a lot of Indian deities. And also, if you use Sketchy, then you'll be able to find it in my gallery of Sketchy artwork. Yeah, so thank you very much for joining me. It's wonderful to have you here. So many familiar names and faces there. Yeah, it's great to be here. Trying to get the time to go back to the beach. That would be good. I actually went to the pool today, and before I even made it into the water, I injured my big toe. There was this kind of concrete edge, and I was totally focused on something else. I kicked it, and I tore my big toe. So I've spent the day limping around, didn't manage to cool off in the water, and now with all of the packing madness before moving, I'm have to take care walking because now I have a tear in my big toe. So that's a bit unfortunate, but my hands are fine, and now we can do some drawing together. So I have a photo today from Ryan Dika. Here we go. I just love this photo. It's another black and white. It's going to be a lot of fun to work in ink with this. And some of the things I love about it, I really enjoy drawing glasses, and it has a really cool distortion on the left side under the of Thrasher. You can see that awesome distortion in the lens. And I love those kind of weird distortions in glasses. So it's going to be really fun to draw that. And it's just this wonderful dark border of the facial hair and beanie. Oh yeah, and facial hair, so much fun to draw. So I've got some nice dark inks that we're gonna work with. Oh, now I'm getting the messages, all of the sympathy, and all of the toe issues. So yeah, I hope it's going to heal quickly too. It's a special time to have a foot injury because there's so much to do at the moment, and 3 little kids to chase. So yeah, we're still staying in Germany. We're moving to a place south of Göttingen called Rheinhausen. So it's not a very distant move. We're just moving to a different village. And it's also, yeah, it's going to be a new chapter. I've been living here for the longest I've lived anywhere, which has been 9 or 10 years. And so it's going to be, yeah, really nice now to get to know a different place. So that's going to be fun, and I'll have plenty more to share with you over that in the coming month or so. So it's be able to maybe forage some new materials for inks. So I will switch around here. I have this particularly lovely pen that I just love the shape of. I like this little hook here. This is another elder pen. It has this like tear and healed wound here, and I'm going to be working with some avocado seed ink and some acorn ink. So this is, if you maybe saw on Instagram, the second lot of 30 Faces, 30 Days portraits I did was with this ink, and it has this kind of nice red-brown color. It's a mix of acorn ink and avocado seed ink. And the paper I'm working on is Hahnemühle, I think it's called Universal. It's like a mixed media paper. And so that's what I have today. And it's not my usual lovely heavyweight paper, but it's also a good kind of watercolor paper. So it's gonna work out all right. I just now that I'm smaller, I just kind of be over here. Had to twist around the computer with all this stuff in the background. Any questions or anything you'd like to share, pop that in the comments. So Irina used to dye woolen yarn with avocado pits, and skin gives a more beautiful result. So that's super interesting, because in lesson 12 of Ink Naturally, I made 3 different avocado inks, and one you can see here. This is just amazing. I wanted to share this with you. This avocado seed, we ate the avocado a couple of days ago, and it's like turning this red, awesome red color. It starts off this kind of yellowy color, and when it oxidizes, it changes into a kind of peachy red color. So this ink here was boiled avocado seeds with baking soda in it, and it turned into this kind of dark red color. And you can also get a lovely light orange peachy color. And the skins, so Irina said that the skins gave really beautiful result for dyeing wool. The skins gave more of a brown color, so just from one fruit got 3 totally different colors, and it's such a joy to work with and to make these. And if you eat avocados, then it's worth saving the stones and the skins. So it's really a wonderful fruit to use. And if it happens to be growing in abundance near where you live, that is the most awesome. Better days, thank you. I'm glad you like my beard. Yes, Karen, exactly. When we move, going to be new foraging opportunities. So that's going to be exciting. I just make sure I kind of marked some lines here so I would know where not to draw off the page. So yeah, we could kind of get into drawing now. Maybe I need to put new marks. So this is just a guide for me so I don't end up drawing this portrait where you can't see it. Yeah, and I think this is a lovely photo to work from. This kind of image with high contrast and really interesting details is something I really enjoy working with. So that's my ink for today. We'll see how we go with it, and I'm just going to dive right into drawing. And I just love this dark border. So I was kind of wondering, should I start with that shape on the outside or the glasses, the inside? And maybe I'll start with the eyes today. I will. Let's do it. Let's start with the eyes. Because I love that kind of distortion through the lens. It's really cool. I have some excess ink here I want to get rid of. So let's start drawing together. So just can get right into it with nice clear lines and just looking back and forward. And this is this thing I love about ink. It's taught me to really look at a shape before I put a mark down. And since I have this nice broad nib, maybe it'd be a great idea to play with the kind of line variety you can get here. So yeah, and I love starting with the lenses of glasses. I know a lot of people kind of, I have got the feedback that a lot of people kind of had difficulty with glasses, but I just think it's such a cool, it's such a clear shape and such a good orientation. Like once you put down that clear shape, then you kind of use it as a guide for where the rest of the shapes should go. And it's often just a nice, clear graphic form that you can use as contrast to the wonderful soft shapes of the face. And just using the lens of the glasses as orientation to find out where you're going to put your marks. So I can see about halfway through the top edge there is like we have this edge of the, I lost that little highlight. There's a tiny little highlight in there, but too much ink in my pen. But I'll make sure I keep that highlight on the top of the rim there. And so I've kind of used the middle as that edge to put this mark in, and just kind of try to realize where exactly the eye is sitting within the lens of the glasses. And it's quite up high, like squished up into the top right side. So sometimes I might have a tendency just to like expand and make the eye a bit too big, or yeah, but this provides a really good framework just in the frame of the glasses to find where we want to put our eye shape. Just looking at those shapes and angles and where we want to put them. So this is a nice dark inky ink. So recently I've been using a lot of natural inks in the live streams, which have an array of colors and they're not always really dark. But this is acorn ink is like my go-to dark inky ink. And it's almost acorn season here, so that's exciting. And speaking of ink, there's been another exciting announcement. There's going to be the Inktober 2020 Portrait Challenge through Sketchy. So official Sketchy Inktober collaboration. And I'm going to be one of the featured artists in the there'll be it's like 30 faces, 30 days, but it's 31 days. And with Artur and Vin, we'll be sharing a whole bunch of ink portraits with you all based on the prompts provided from the official Inktober challenge. So that's going to be a lot of fun. Who here has done Inktober in the past? Are there any Inktober fans here at the moment? I have in the past started Inktober and not finished. So now participating in this and also creating and sharing with you for the Inktober 2020 Portrait Challenge. It's going to be a good incentive to finish Inktober. So that will be, I think it's going to be really cool. Nice way to spend October. So I've been working on this little distorted space here, which I think is really lovely. Of course, we have this really clear highlight of where the glass fits into the frame. And just setting up this space in here. It's like a little filter that's really shrunken down that part of the face. And I just think the play of that distortion in the overall portrait is a really fun thing. I always love seeing reference photos that have, I don't know, maybe my glasses aren't thick enough. I have a little bit of distortion, but not too much. But I like the way it breaks up the edge of the face. It's so cool. Oh yeah, cool. So Sketchy has put up the link, so you can already sign up. There's a bonus inking tutorial from Jake Parker, who is the brilliant creator of Inktober. I don't know how many years it's been going on now, but Inktober is just so cool. There's just so many people, so many artists making so much amazing ink work. It's so much fun, especially on Instagram. It's just a buzz to see what everyone's doing. So Stefan has done Inktober, Better Days. Cool. I'm just sometimes I'll take a little moment and just read what people have said. Okay, something about alkaline in from yarrow thistle in the avocado seed recipe. So I like to use as natural and as easily findable ingredients as possible. So because I do a lot with my kids, and there are some pretty intense acids and alkalines and metal salts, and it's something I would like to experiment with a bit, because you can get some really interesting different results. But I like to keep it as healthy and safe and easy to do as possible. Which all of the all of the recipes and everything we shared in the Ink Naturally course was all like really easily sourceable, cool stuff for doing that. There's a really nice shadow of the glasses underneath here. Just going to kind of indicate that a bit. And Brenda says it'll be a third Inktober. Cool. Yeah, I do it with Sketchy this year. So tell all your friends and sign up for the Sketchy Inktober challenge. It's I'm pretty excited about it and honoured to be invited to share my process with you. And yeah, I was thinking about the dark inks, like the classic inky inks. So this one is really nice and dark. And in October, I will work with a lot of dark inks. Keep it really inky. Because in the Ink Naturally, some of the inks I made were quite light, and I feel in some ways it's almost like watercolor. Some of the pieces I did for the June Ink Naturally course, because there were like pinks and yellows and some greens and like I think a totally fun, fascinating range of colors, but not necessarily what you think of when you think of ink. So really dark, intense ink is really great to work with and learn with. So you can see here, even this dark ink in this eyebrow shape, I'm able to draw it out and really lower that saturation, that intensity as well. So there's still quite a lot of room for variation. So there's an interesting point, the width between the eyes and the width of the nose. So just take a moment to check in the overall, like compared to the width of the frame, how long is that? Is it maybe like a third of that frame? I think it's about, that looks about right. And just picking these shapes to measure from, I just find it's a fun, helpful way. Strong contrast, the Loomis method, planning and structuring everything, but an awesome complement to it. So who watching is doing Mike's Drawing the Human Head class at the moment? Because I think this kind of like really internalizing all of that information from the Loomis method and anatomy and structure, such a useful background to have when you just kind of loosely work into something. So I'm also doing the class, but this week haven't had a lot of time for it. And so the line here, I think I've curved it a bit more than it is. That's okay. That's cool. To kind of follow that, we've got this line going through here. And when you have these perspective lines, or like the bottom line of the bottom eyelid going through, and the bridge between the lenses there, to use those to kind of line up and get your shapes and sizes and stuff right. Mike, if you take my class, you'll become at least an expert in drawing circles. That's excellent. And drawing circles is a very good thing to be able to do. So yeah, I'll definitely be getting into it amongst the moving and everything. I've been drawing a lot of circles, and it's also great just to fill a page with lines, and especially with these pens, I think it's so much fun to experiment with line variation and filling a page with circles. And my kids love that kind of stuff, just circles everywhere. Andy, I'm glad to have your support for Inktober. Yeah, so awesome. So awesome what you're offering, Mike. It's such a cool foundational thing. I was doing the Proco classes years back, which were super informative and helpful for me. And Proco talks about the Loomis method, right? In his early things, I think he does. I think that's where I kind of was maybe introduced to it. For anyone not familiar with Proco's awesome tutorials, they're awesome. And that was like learning that kind of foundational stuff just helped kind of fill in the blanks, because I had always liked drawing, and often had a lot of weird things happening in my drawings, which was fun but frustrating sometimes. And just having that foundation was cool. Here's a nice little thing. At this edge of the lens of the glasses, there's this cool distortion thing happening. So it's like, it's totally removed from where the beanie is, but in the lens of the glasses here, we're seeing part of the beanie. And I just love that. Like the beanie's actually out over here, but we're seeing it over here. And those distortions, just cool. So sometimes it's totally fun to consciously or just distort your drawings as you're going. Sometimes it just happens anyway, even if you're not intentionally doing it. But I love seeing the distortion that already exists within an image. And the lens of a photo, of a camera, of a phone, definitely, it's already creating so much distortion. But having this distortion in physical distortion in the actual lenses of the glasses, I just always think such a delightful thing to see and fun to draw. So here again, I'm using this top edge to find my orientation, and it's interesting. The eye here was kind of squished up in the corner, even maybe more so than I have drawn it. Can move it over a bit more. And here it's kind of like right in the middle, but keeping that level, like it's up quite high in the lens. Maybe I can manage to keep a bit of highlight in there. It's pretty subtle, but it's there. It was just this flat edge moment filling in that eye. Love it. Some chatting going on in the chat. That's nice. Anyone wants to hit the thumbs up button, that's nice too. Thank you for the thumbs uppers, thumber uppers. I'm not entirely sure what putting the thumbs up does. Some kind of algorithm magic, probably. Or just a like pat on the back, thumbs up. So that could be darker. It's a fun thing, just dropping in extra ink, intensifying the lines and darkness. And here, this is much darker, this fold here, but I like the kind of variation in value in that line. It's cool. All around here is going to be some inky darkness. And this is something I've often heard said, the white of the eyes is not as white as you think it is, and here it's totally dark. But I'm gonna try and let this dry enough so that I can add in a lighter kind of stroke. If I do it now, the ink here will just bleed into it and it's all gonna be the same. But if I let that dry, I'll be able to come back and make that the white of the eye much darker, so it will be kind of more like it is in the reference photo. And sometimes it's good with this ink. The ink that I make tends to be kind of slow drying, similar to watercolor again. And so sometimes, yeah, it's good just to be familiar with the materials and to know, okay, this is gonna, I want to change that, but it's going to need some time to dry before I can really get in and change things. So then just to keep working on other things here, kind of use some big, flat, almost dry brushy lines to fill in some of these spaces. And just do some other things and maybe come back, and if I remember to fill in the white of the eye, I'll be able to do that. And that bottom line of the glasses, we can make that. It's kind of cool like that. But maybe it'd be kind of cool like this too. Eyes. So now I can expand. So it's interesting to spend like half an hour chatting a bit in the beginning, but just focusing on the eyes. And we look at the eyes when we talk to people. Face mask days, then it's the eyes are so important. So it's interesting to start with the eyes and work out from there. And also interesting to leave the eyes out, maybe for another day. But now, after doing all this tight, careful stuff around the eyes, maybe it'd be fun just to really do some loose, broad strokes to get into the rest of the face. Because once again, it's this contrast thing, the contrast of that control and tightness and fineness, and then just doing some really chunky stuff, which I like doing. Anyone else like that kind of stuff? I do. There are so many amazing, inspiring artists, which I guess I've learned from and seen these incredible, whether it's oil painters with their just magical brushstrokes, which, like, if you have the opportunity to go to a gallery and see something which from afar looks so real and amazing, and you get up close and it's just like these fat chunky brushstrokes, that kind of stuff I just think is magical. So it's fun to experiment with those kind of things. And using a broad-edged tool is a great way to go about it. And here, not too much, but in the top lip, which is really nice and dark, it would be nice also to leave a few highlights of the moustache. I don't want to do too much because it can be kind of, I don't know, over the top or disproportionate. If we leave too many like really white shining moustache hairs here. But does anyone drawing along have a moustache? I do. There's a cool squinting down while looking at the reference is something I do a lot to kind of simplify the value structure. And I just noticed there's a really interesting triangle shape below the bottom lip, the way it's coming down here. I'm just kind of maybe do something here to kind of indicate that shape. Maybe here just kind of scratch and dance around a bit. And loosen up a bit. I was talking here about getting loose, and then I started getting really careful with it again. So let's get loose again. And sometimes for like areas the moustache on the top lip, where it doesn't have that full-on intensity and saturation of like a really dark shadowy area, can just kind of like, if you've got a lot of ink sitting on the paper, you can maybe steal it from somewhere and then put it somewhere else. If something's too dark, you can take some of that wet ink and put it somewhere else. And pull some of that darkness up into it, because there's a lot of like, I wouldn't want to spend too much time and do a really accurate, perfect moustache, I think. But it's kind of just flicking some of the ink around and implying some of those lines is a nice kind of way to pretend that you're drawing a lot of detail. A few random hairs that are just out there doing their thing, standing out from the others. And that just picking out a few moments, like there's some interesting things happening, some interesting shapes within the moustache and the facial hair. If we take like here at the edge of the mouth. It kind of comes down. There's some interesting shapes over here. It's like a highlight swinging down. Maybe you can keep that. And just picking a few of those interesting shapes throughout the whole kind of, can be a bit overwhelming, all that detail. And yeah, just picking a few shapes to draw out and play with will kind of add to the feeling that this is a moustache. Which I guess is goes for hair as well. Not this kind of hair, but for longer hair, just picking out shapes and drawing different shapes rather than focusing on each hair. Can kind of give a life to it. So I think this is really cool. This, I did the border around the face, like, and the face is the brightest. It's much brighter in the background. So there's really a cool value structure here, and just kind of setting all this up, and it's soon to be encompassed by that dark, shadowy area. So yeah, I don't know. I just think it's just such a cool, we look at things and there's this cool shape. There's this cool highlight shape, cool contrast, and just this, shapes. Just the relationship of the different shapes. You're like looking at all these different shapes when drawing that first eye. How do those shapes fit together? And then they're sitting within a bigger shape, and you can keep kind of expanding that out or going into finer detail and just looking at cool shapes makes it kind of enjoyable, fun to draw and look at. Hello, Teresa from Maryland. You're very welcome. Sheila, I'm glad you like it. If anyone has any questions, feel free to ask. But as we wrap this up soon, I've got just over 20 minutes left. If you have any particular questions about ink making or whatever, about toe injuries, whatever, it's all good. If you have something interesting you'd like to say about avocados or acorns. So for those who tuned in late, this is a avocado seed and acorn ink mix. And this may have, it's still got this really lovely red color. I'll show you that soon. Maybe I'll fill in that outline. I'll kind of set up a shape and fill in the border with the avocado ink because it just has such a lovely color. And this ink that I'm using, it's so dark because it has iron in it too. And that's iron is a really wonderful modifier. It greatly improves the light fastness of natural inks. It makes them darker. It reacts with tannin, so any plant material that you have which is high in tannin will react with iron and become darker. So it has, if you're after dark ink, it has that great kind of bonus effect of making the ink darker and making it more light fast. So I guess it's that mineral component of the iron which maybe fortifies the botanical pigment, because a lot of inks that we make, like from flower petals or from berries, they may fade, they may change color, they can be a wonderful purple color and maybe become gray over time. There are some really interesting things that happen in the way these inks age. But as I mentioned before, acorn ink is my go-to ink for doing dark, inky work. And from my experience so far of working with natural inks, the last 4 or 5 years, it has stayed really nice and dark. I've done pieces with it that look the same today as they did 4 or 5 years ago, and they've been hanging unprotected from UV light. So here's some fun scruffy things happening in the beard. That's a good question. How do you add the iron when making a stick? Unfortunately, because of moving, I've packed up all my stuff, but I collect rusty things. I was at the beach recently, and salt water and steel iron is wonderful for making things rust. So I found some rusty things on the beach, or I was at a barn and found a handful of rusty bolts and screws and stuff. Look for rusty things and then put it in a jar of vinegar. I've heard, either I just use vinegar, but some people use vinegar, a mix of vinegar and water, and it will just kind of accelerate the oxidization process, I guess, to make it more rusty. And then you end up with vinegar, which is also a mordant, so it helps fibers draw in the pigment that you apply to it, and maybe it also has some kind of preservative effect. I don't know. But having that vinegar and the iron, you end up with this amazing kind of iron solution. And for a jar about this size of like cooked acorn stuff, so now I'm looking at the little picture of myself. There's like a honey jar, half a kilo jar. In that, I would put like a teaspoon of this iron and vinegar mix that I have, and it will turn it from a kind of a milky coffee color to a really dark, almost black brown color. So iron and vinegar, it's actually super easy. You need to make sure it can breathe as part of that rusting process. And so don't have it in a closed jar because weird things will happen. It needs to evaporate, and you can pour off the vinegar and let it breathe for a week, pour the vinegar back on. And I have a couple jars that I've had going for years and years now, where I just occasionally will put some vinegar on, it will rust some more. And that's how I have my iron. When you're making the ink, you can also put in a handful of rusty screws while you're cooking the ink, and that will also instantly start reacting with the ink you're making. So those are two pretty easy ways to add iron to your ink. Someone asked about the paper. It's Hahnemühle Universal Mixed Media paper, this one. Krista! Yes, Shaggy Mane Mushroom Ink. I have, and I think they're the most amazing mushrooms. I love them, and I think they'll be growing here soon. Mushroom ink gets super stinky. It's intense. You can't keep it inside, I think, unless you like that kind of thing. But it's these Shaggy Mane mushrooms. Once they start growing here, I'll do some Instagram posts and Instagram stories and stuff. They're incredible. In German, they're called Tintlinge, which means like inkling. And when a friend of mine first told me about them, and he's like, "Oh yeah, those are Tintlinge. They're really delicious if you prepare them fresh." I was like, Tintlinge? If they've got ink in the name, then they must have something to do with ink. And I looked it up, and they were used by monks to make ink in the past. And they're just a really incredible mushroom. They just kind of melt and turn into ink. It's amazing. Those are cool mushrooms. Dawn. Glad you joined us. I'm not in my new home yet, but as you can see in the background here, lots of packing has been happening, and I kicked my toe against a piece of concrete. I was looking at my wrist, and at the pool, just about to go for a swim, and kicked this piece of concrete and like tore a flap of skin on my toe. But it's okay, it will heal. A bit inconvenient timing, but sometimes these things happen. Better days, thank you. I'm glad you like the drawing. Now I'm going to do some fun stuff here with my avocado ink, just to show you the wonderful colour. So I'm going to take this brush. It's a nice, broad, flat watercolour brush. And I'm going to fill in this area. This is kind of cool, just like this, with this implied outline. I feel like the face, it's kind of good for now. Maybe a bit darker around the nostrils, but we can do that. But now I'll fill this in a bit with this lovely avocado seed ink. So this is avocado seed cooked with baking soda. A whole bunch of avocado seeds, I might add. So you can see compared to this, which is kind of this grey-brown colour, this is a really lovely dark red. So nice. I use clove oil or whole cloves to preserve and prevent mold growth. So it smells like cloves, which is very nice, as opposed to the horrid smell of those mushroom inks. They're okay when they're fresh. With a lot of inks, I think it's really advisable to make them and use them fresh when you need them. A lot of natural supplies do really well at being preserved and dried, and then you can use them in their dried state to make fresh ink, because the colour I find retains its vibrancy when we're using coloured inks. It will often retain its vibrancy much better on paper than it will in a jar. If you have the luxury of fridge space to store your inks, putting them in the fridge will really help preserving them. But if that's not the case, then it's better with some inks. With the acorn ink, I'll make like a litre of ink and it stays good for a long time. I think the iron is also helps prevent mold growth and stuff. Maybe. But I've had acorn inks that just have never gone bad, whereas some others tend to go bad a lot faster. But yeah, whole cloves, clove oil, other essential oils that are kind of antimicrobial and things that can prevent mold growth. Those things are good to have with your natural inks. So speaking of moving home, I had so many jars, so many experiments of natural ink, and I tipped a lot of them out because I just couldn't use them all, and I'm kept my favourites, but there were some where I thought it's going to be better to make it fresh than to risk taking, I don't know how many jars I had, like 40 different jars of ink, and so some of them just had to be disposed of, which was one of the reasons I got into natural inks, is because a lot of the disposal of art supplies is totally problematic. But when it's basically just made of berries, then it can be returned to nature without any weird kind of dangerous things in it. So this is fun. This dark shape, red, maybe it looks like a hood now, like it's got some kind of hood on. I wonder about the background. For another 10 minutes. So yeah, do they have to be refrigerated? They don't have to be. if you had the luxury of being able to refrigerate some of the inks, some don't keep as well as others. And it's summer here at the moment, like pretty hot, and those kind of decompositional processes can happen. In an ideal situation, you'll sterilize everything that you work with. So boiling your jars and utensils just as if you were making, like preserving food. And that will also help extend the life of your inks. So add some more darkness to the outline here. And I don't know what it is, but some plant materials just seem to be more prone to going off than others. Like I've walnut ink is amazing, and the walnuts are almost ripe, almost ready. They make a really wonderful dark ink as well, and you can dry them really well and store them dried. And I've mentioned this before. I have some walnut stain that I made, and I added alcohol to it, and that preserves it super well. But I've experimented with a lot of things, and sometimes I've just forgotten to put anything in to prevent mold growth, because I made some ink during a workshop, and maybe I forgot to put anything in. And over summer, like over the course of a month, this walnut ink got really stinky. So it's good to take precautions to prolong the life of your ink, or to make smaller amounts, just like as you need, maybe. So they don't have to be refrigerated, but if you've got the fridge space. And be careful not to mix up ink and food. Like, even though these are natural materials, I wouldn't want to be drinking these inks. So in the ideal situation, you'll have your own ink kitchen, which is something I fantasize about. Just being able to have my own kitchen where everything's for ink making, full of all these natural materials. That would be so cool. But if you don't have a dedicated ink kitchen, it's good to clearly label things. Labeling things is a really good idea. When I started making inks, I remembered everything I had made. Like, that's that flower, that's that walnut, and that's all those things. And then at some point there were just so many jars, and I was like, I just couldn't remember anymore. So labeling is a really good idea. And labeling something that says dogwood berry ink, then it's really clear that it's not like something yummy that you want to put with your food. You don't want to go adding it to yogurt or something. Here I'm just kind of felt like I had a bit of time to wrap this up, and just adding some more dark bits to the, in some areas, still wet avocado seed ink. So it's got some cool kind of bleedy dispersion happening in some areas. I almost sound like an apothecary. Yeah, apothecary, alchemist. When you add iron to ink, like to acorn ink, and you just watch this like cloud of darkness transform a jar of ink into kind of black wonderfulness. That's yeah, that's a special moment. Apothecary is good too. I've learned so much about plants, like just getting to know the plants in my surroundings. And so like 13 years ago, I started building flutes from elderberry wood, and it was the first time I'd ever really seen an individual plant. Like, it's like, what does an elderberry tree look like? Like, trees just all look like trees. And that was kind of like my awakening to seeing individual trees. It's like, before that I thought a tree's a tree, right? They have leaves, a trunk. But then I started to notice these elder trees growing everywhere, and when they blossom, they have these wonderful blossoms, smell so amazing, and lovely berries. And so that getting to know nature, getting to know the elder tree was like my first experience of really befriending a plant, and getting into more and more into ink making and getting to know all these different plants and what I can use for ink, or what I should leave alone, or what can be eaten from nature, what's medicinal. It's super fascinating, and I would encourage you all to definitely educate yourselves on the kind of things that are growing in your surroundings, what you can use, what you should stay away from, because some plants are just totally poisonous. They may look lovely, but there are some plants I definitely wouldn't want to bring into my kitchen. That's cool. Leave the brambles alone for the foxes. Yeah. There are foxes, there are badgers here. There are so many animals loving all the berries at the moment. This is for those in the northern hemisphere with a similar kind of climate to Germany, I guess. It's just like it's been a very berry full time. There's been so many cherries. Cherry time's over. We had wild raspberries growing here, wild strawberries, and the brambles, the blackberries, they're beginning to ripen. And there are just so many wonderful plants that we can use for ink, and so many different flowers. And every year I'm getting to know new plants and experiment. I'm going to kill the white in that eye there, which I mentioned earlier. So this may be a cool moment to add some of those middle shadows in this area around the eye. The ink is dried enough that it can come back and push around some marks without losing all that careful ink work from the beginning. We just have a couple minutes left. You can just quickly put in a few little details, hair, shading. So how's everyone going? Who's been drawing along? And it's always cool to see on Instagram when you can hashtag ink naturally, tag me at Dylan Sara. I love seeing what you create in our time together, or if you're watching this after the fact. I also love seeing what you create. And how have I done with this portrait? I like it. I think this has this really clear shape, some really great shapes here, and this kind of graphic feel. It's been really fun to draw. So thanks a lot, Ryan. It's been wonderful drawing you. Thank you, acorns and avocados, for your ink. Thank you to all of you for watching and joining in. Cool. Thank you, Jennifer. Thank you, Sketchy. Alison. Glad you like it. Yeah, Karen, I'm totally excited about finding new materials. It's very similar. I'm not moving very far, but there are definitely microclimates around, and so things that are growing here may not be growing there, and vice versa. So it's definitely going to be exciting discovering a new space. Beate using watercolor markers, cool. I've just heard about them recently for the first time, so I'm super curious about your watercolor marker results. Oh yeah, cool. Elderberry syrup is a lifesaver during flu season. And it's like the elder plant is like nature's medicine cabinet. And here in Germany, it's also connected to the goddess Frau Holle. This is an elder pen, a branch made from the elder tree. And often, even to this day, elder trees can be found really close to homes, and like old farm homes, there'll often be really big, amazing elder trees. And like every part of the plant has some great medicinal qualities. Doesn't mean you just want to eat raw berries. They need to be cooked. But yeah, it's great. Just really immune boosting. Elder is such a wonderful plant. Yeah, so here's our portrait from today. Oh, cool, another tip from Marina about hawthorn berries. Good for the heart. Cool, thank you, Dawn. I also hope that my toe heals fast, because I've got a lot of boxes to carry around and things to move. Thank you, Sketchy, for sharing this platform to share my love of art and natural ink making. And thank you to all of you and all the muses. And it's just so much fun creating together. It's a wonderful community, and thank you for joining today. If you like ink, sign up for the Inktober 2020 Portrait Challenge. And when you share your work, tag me. I'd love to see what you've done, and feel free to write to me, and look forward to next time. So have a great week, and see you soon. Oh, hang on, another little question here. Nikira, if that's a question about buying my pen, I've been thinking I have so many pens. I've been making so many pens, and some of them are just beautiful. And I've been thinking about selling some of them. So if anyone's interested in buying my hand-carved elder pens, then get in touch, because that's something I've been thinking about recently. Yeah, glad to have you all here. I think that was the last kind of question, comment. Oh, cool. Old elder ink makes a nice cool grey. Yeah, that's great. And elder, you can just like squeeze the ink straight from the berries, and it's this vivid purple. It's so amazing. But over time, as it oxidizes and is exposed to light, it will fade into a really lovely grey color, which both is beautiful. The intense fresh color and also the faded color, they're both totally lovely. All right. Cool. As I said before, have a wonderful week, and thank you for sharing time together. See you soon.